Here's my question, and I think I know the answer to this, or I know my answer anyway. Shohei, gone. Yes or no? Now that Arte is like,
he was always gone. He was always gone. Even if they had new ownership, there wouldn't have been enough time to get new ownership in place to figure that out.
I disagree. I disagree, because if somebody comes into the building and lays out the red carpet again and shows how you are going to be the building block of this organization, and now the contract that we're going to lock you up to over the next decade plus, hopefully, has some outs there early on. So if we as a club aren't meeting the standard, if we're not putting our money where our mouth was in these initial conversations with you, Mr. Ohtani, telling you that you're going to be the foundation, if we're not doing our part like by year 3 and you're ready to cut bait and get the fuck out of there, well, then we're going to put that in place. We're going to allow you to make that decision because we want you. So if giving you the cards, giving you an extra ace in your deck is what we need to do, then that's what we're going to do. But I feel like there's an opportunity to make that happen because it's clean slate. And maybe Ohtani's on board with being the foundation guy. Maybe, Jared, maybe that doesn't mean a fucking thing to him. And he's like, I've come what I came to do. If you guys would have listened to Dallas, he told you what I came to do, and that was play alongside your best player in this game and show you just how fucking good and valuable I actually am, and now we'll let the bidding war commence. So that could have always been the game plan, which I told you I thought it was. So with the Angels' inability to do anything to support him and already have Mike Trout being vocal about needing reinforcements, yeah, I think Arte being there all but seals the deal on Ohtani being gone.
Yeah, but don't you think that since we're talking about the first player in our sport whose contract more than likely will start with a 5, we're not even talking about a bidding war, because the dude is going to end up with $500 million regardless. So now he's just picking the organization that he feels like best gives him a chance to win multiple championships, which is obviously not the Angels. So whether Arte Moreno's there or a new owner is there, I don't see how the Angels would have come out on the winning side of any sort of Ohtani sweepstakes.
I don't know how any team necessarily does if they're thinking about this through a financial lens, which organizations always do. And Jared, though he is the type of talent that he is, that could very well scare a lot of teams away, a large number of teams away from even getting into that pool, right? Like, sorry, we can't even swim in that pool. We're not even trying to swim in that pool. We're good over here. Like, that pool is way too deep. We don't even have the money to even consider that. And how he plays out over the next 10 years, you're not talking about a guy who you can just stamp 10 years worth of production on both sides of the ball. That's not how this works. And everybody understands that. So you're kind of on guard when it comes to that. That's why his contract is going to look, I mean, I said this the minute that Julio signed, the minute that J-Rod signed, and there were so many caveats and so many like ins and outs and benchmarks. And I said, could you imagine what Ohtani's contract is going to look like when we're talking about?
They're going to have to make an Otani rule for luxury tax purposes, because if you think about it, his salary is for 2 players, but he counts as 1. So his average annual value, it's almost like it almost like hurts your team from like a luxury tax perspective to bring Shohei on, because say he makes $50 million a year, then it should be 2 guys at the AAV of 25 million, but it's just one dude 50, and
Jay, hey, you know what's weird to think about is if we can just almost land on and just almost assume that it's normal to think that Ohtani would be compensated at a high level for his offense and at a high level for his work on the mound, and just readily assuming like, well, what he's doing on the mound is worth 20 plus a year. What he's doing at the dish is worth 20 plus a year. If we can just assume that financially, how come that doesn't match up statistically? How come we can just understand a dude could be worth this on the hitter side of things a year, 20 plus, and on the mound, 20 plus, but then statistically you can have somebody who performs great on one side or the other, and it could be close. It could be close statistically.
What do you mean it doesn't? What do you mean statistically it doesn't work?
So like
I mean, I know he's complicated things a little bit.
Sure.
But
just taking Judge
to some degree of
just taking the
measure
Judge conversation.
Pitching wins above. Yeah.
Like how Aaron Judge does not spend any time on the mound, but when you take a combined WAR for Ohtani and compare it to Judge's singular offensive/defensive WAR, and again, we can get into how we understand the metrics are flawed and blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying very rough, very surface level, like when you look at it and you think to yourself, well, naturally, we would all think that somebody like that gets paid double because he's doing it on both sides. But then statistically, that doesn't necessarily show up. His WAR, his wins above replacement, is not double that of Aaron Judge's.
No, but I think we should also remember that the magnitude of Aaron Judge's offensive season was much greater than the magnitude of Shohei Ohtani. This is not
for sure.
This is not just the same offensive player, and one of them happens to be an ace as well. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Aaron Judge, it was not just the home runs. He put up a statistically offensive season that was for the ages. So I do think that factors in too. But there's no question that. I mean, I do think Ohtani is going to end up being paid like a guy who does two things at an elite level.
God, I can't wait. I just can't fucking wait.
Jared's right that 500 is in play.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I'm gonna. I mean, I'm going to have to get extra homeowners insurance, extra fire insurance, because I am going to be starting a skin fire in every fucking room the minute that this dude signs. I mean, the breaded chicken titties are going to be flaming.
So you think it's a done deal? He'll make more than Judge?
I don't think, no, Joe, I don't think I'm not as aggressive to think that it's going to be a 5 spot. And it's simply because I think there's a lot of teams who are going to hold the unknown of the future and try to leverage that against Ohtani and his camp, saying, that's great. You've done it for 2 years, a year and a half. Can we expect this for the net? You're telling us we can expect this for the next 10, and we're supposed to just sign up for that and not think that the wear and tear on you is going to be the same as a guy who just pitches or just hits. And that's where, and it's going to sound like we're just going back to the same spot, but that's where the precautions contractually come into place for the organizations. If you get hurt doing this, well, we know that you can't do that, right? If you get hurt swinging, well, that's going to effectively take you off the mound as well. Rotationally, you're not going to be able to do those things. But as we saw, if it's an arm injury, maybe that doesn't prevent you from serving as the DH, which we have seen. So you're going to have to be really careful. And I'm sure they're going to cover all those bases when it comes to, all right, well, if your boy's not pitching, but he can still hit, what's he got to do to earn that cake? Well, if for some reason he can pitch, but he can't hit, what's he got to do to earn that cake? And that's where all the precautions are going to come in.
Yeah, dude. It's always a two-sided story, because you could say he plays both positions, so he's more likely to get hurt. But then you could also say it's like having DeGrom, who has an injury background, and you're nervous. You don't want to assign him to a long-term deal. But if DeGrom got hurt, he can still bat.
Right.
If Shohei fucks his arm up and he can still hit, at least you got half of Shohei, which is still one of the best hitters in the league. It's almost like a security blanket. But the thing I always say, being the Shohei expert I am.
Boom, Shohei. Talk to me, Shohei.
When we're talking numbers with Shohei, I don't think this guy gives a fuck about money at all. He gave up $200 million to come to the U.S. just 2 years early. He gave up so much money. I can see this being a Bobby Bonilla, or just deferred until forever, or just take some crazy thing like that.
He might just turn heel, and this is where he says, no, sorry, it wasn't ever about the money early on, but now I've showed you what the fuck's up, and unless you come correct, it's nothing but the money. So either show me the money or show yourself out the fucking door.
That's not Shohei, though.
Don't do that, dude.
The motherfucker mapped out at 12 years old what his entire life was going to be like, and all of it included personal accolades and championships. Dude wants to win Cy Young Awards, MVPs, and World Series titles, and throw no hitters in perfect games. That's what he told you he wanted to do. So yeah, I think. But for him, especially because the Japanese culture being like a big on like respect and everything. I mean, it was the same thing with Pedro. It was, it wasn't necessarily about the money. It was about the respect. What are other guys making? What am I worth relative to what they make? And when you talk about a guy like Shohei Ohtani, the number would have to start with the 5. Like that's just where the market is. And we've just never seen a player like him before hit free agency. But I'm curious because we've had this conversation before. I think maybe it'll shift over time. But Jay, I'm curious, where do you think Shohei ultimately lands up? Where will his baseball home be? What cap will he wear into the Hall of Fame?
Selfishly, I'm very into the rumors that Steve Cohen has already talked to Mets executives about coming and going and getting Shohei Ohtani, because that would allow me direct access to going to watch him play, which, I mean,
it's a fucking treat, bud.
And it would also put him on a contender. So it's not completely selfish. Or a team that's going to be spending and investing like a contender, you would think. So I would love to see him on the Mets. I think that would be great.
Oh my
Get
God.
to go see Shohei live and in person.
I'd shoot myself in the face, bro.
I would probably not wear Joey.
I think old Deal and DePoto might be angling, might be maneuvering to see if they can't reel that big fish in.
Didn't you hear? Did you hear the rumor about the Japanese billionaire that wanted to buy the Angels to keep Shohei there?
To keep him in LA?
Yeah.
The guy who owns the LA Times? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know who it was. It was like first it started as like a Reddit rumor, and then I think Rosenthal wrote about it or hinted at it. And there was just some Japanese billionaire, like the Japanese Steve Cohen, wanted to buy the Angels and keep Shohei in Anaheim.
See, that's what we need. We need another guy, another owner with fuck you money, whoever, and just we need that person.
Someone who loves baseball to own a baseball team would be nice.
It's not. You can't buy
that's
Shohei.
Great for the long-term vision for the Angels. That does not help Shohei Ohtani because, again, by the time an owner who wants to invest like crazy and spend like crazy and redo the farm system and do the right stuff,
he's gone.
It's come and gone for Shohei.
We've already watched it with Trout. Let's just think about this, boys. Think about this. We've been doing this. Jay, Jared, we've been together for 5-6 years plus, right? And we've been talking about that window of
this is our
Trout's
7th season coming up.
Career 7th season. So that window, we're now on the other side of the window we were talking about once before with Trout, going, man, the window's open right now. Would love to see them capitalize. Well, now we're on the other side of that. We're on the other side of that. And what's to say? What proof do we have that that's going to change or that's not going to be the same? And this is where it gets interesting, because it's not to say that the Angels, it's for a lack of effort. It's sometimes misguided, right? Sometimes it feels like they've been the ship on the river that has come to the fork in the river, and they've been given the map that says, go this way. If you go that way, it's going to be a waterfall and you're going to be fucked. Don't do that. Don't sign the guy to a decade plus after you probably know the first decade was the best you were going to get. And then when you need pitching, I would maybe avoid going and getting the injury-prone third baseman. These are just things that we could maybe steer ourselves around. But it's not for a lack of spending, because they've written the checks. They've just written them at the wrong places.